I have been following this space for a really, really long time. I was super obsessed with it for a really long time. And so today I'd like to share my thoughts. Also, I have a theory that I've been developing in public called swarm theory that I think can help shed light. It can be a powerful frame for really anything, for really understanding anything. But this will be a kind of experiment about that because we can apply it here, and I think it will provide some insight. So there's a lot of excitement about Donut Labs and their solid state batteries, and the truth is that I've done just a little bit of research. You know, looked into their founding team, looked into the company, the corporate structure, all that stuff. That the underlying technology a little bit, um, but powerful frameworks wouldn't be very powerful if you had to learn everything about something before you could kind of have deep insights about it or make predictions about it. And so, not to bury the lead or anything, but my prediction is that this is a dud. This will not really turn into anything. It looks super impressive. Um, the 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 prototypes that these batteries are supposedly powering look beautiful and amazing, and I I, I really hope that I'm wrong about this. I'm not saying that this is a fraud or a scam. Um, it falls into a term I've coined called a gray scam. Everybody's doing work, everybody's doing their best, everybody's doing their jobs. They might even be executing on their jobs. They might believe that they're going to be able to scale this technology. But an entrepreneur's job, an investor's job is to hype up their product um, and try to scale it, to try to make it a success. And getting a lot of attention is important. And getting those early partners is really important. But it, it's it's just not the same thing as as scaling the technology. So yeah, I do think that swarm theory can provide valuable insights. If you're not familiar, swarm theory is based on the core axiom that reality is constructed by nested swarms of information processing nodes, um, and that this is a fundamentally physical constraint. It ties every level to underlying physics. What you know, one of the pillars being the second law of thermodynamics. Um, so basically, the universe allows for the creation of things that can process information. They use energy to process information, to take in uh, the environment, take information from the environment, process it, then communicate it. And it's through this nested and hierarchical communication process that that information grows, um, and that it, that includes, for lack of a better way of putting it, physical information, right? And so, companies are a kind of information processing node. They're a kind of swarm. Sorry if I sorry did I say the axiom right? It's that reality is constructed by nested swarms of information processing nodes. So everything's an information processing node, and everything is a swarm of information processing nodes at the same time, right? It's basically a way of distinguishing between scale. Okay, and so if you're looking at a company, um, what matters is how it processes information, and the products fall out of that. So the reason why Tesla is able to put out such great products and innovate so rapidly and produce so many of these units, um, it's not because Elon Musk is a genius. It's not because Um, they are built on some like underlying technological breakthroughs, though these things are not untrue. Um, but none of that stuff really matters. I think a lot of people have this faulty understanding of how disruption occurs because they imagine that it's due to some lone genius or some technological breakthrough. And that's never the case. That's not really what's going on. These are emergent phenomena. And so if you don't understand what they're emerging from, you're not going to understand the phenomena themselves. Um, and so, yeah, Donut Lab seems to be exploiting that vulnerability in people where they think, oh, this is a technological breakthrough. So, hence, there will be disruption. Um, but unfortunately, that's not how it ever works, ever, not one single time, ever, ever. Um, some kind of innovation is necessary, but not sufficient, right? The reason why Tesla is able to produce so many disruptive products, or Apple, or Google, or whatever great big company you want to point to, is because they are a swarm where the information they are a swarm of information processors that are efficiently processing information, efficiently communicating, processing information at every level, from the individual worker up through the working groups, up through the departments, however they structure their hierarchy, right? Um, these are incredibly complex organizations. The reason why they output such powerful products, um, products that enable other people to process more information, um, is because they have within them the design, the infrastructure, um, the abstract ideas, like the abstract frameworks to organize all these people to facilitate that communication, and it's all working together to create this this swarm, this highly efficient swarm, um, and that's what a product is. A product is is physical information. It's organizing matter. That's what information really is. It's the creation of order out of chaos. And so in order to do that, you need an organization that basically kind of mirrors that structure, that has all of the abstract information, has all of the information processors within it, like tightly coupled and properly aligned so that they're they're creating a ton of order out of chaos. They're creating a ton of structure. Now, their purpose is to create this big machine that outputs other machines. But the better they do that, the better able they are to produce these machines that enable us to process more information. So now going back to Donut Lab, we'll see. It's incredibly, incredibly hard to build an organization that can do that stuff. Um, and there's no substitute for just doing it. So they're a young company, they're a new company. Everybody points to the leadership that's in them. It's funny when I see the leadership, that's fine. They're pretty impressive, but everybody always points to the exits that they've had. That doesn't impress me. What impresses me is when I see somebody who has spent 10, 20 years building stuff. Um, People who exit are good at building companies, getting companies far enough along that they get sold to somebody else. So I'm not seeing the kind of experience that I'd like to see, to believe that this is a company that is going to be able to back up the claims that they're making. They are absolutely doing a great job of building up hype about their product. But innovation just doesn't happen like this. I know a lot of people, like David Patterson, I think is his name, think, well, everything's changing now because there's AI. Um, and AI is going to enable people to just like much more rapidly iterate and produce disruptive products. I think he's totally wrong. And this will be an interesting case study. I mean, it seems like he's obviously extremely wrong here. I think he's allowing his optimism, um, to and his worldview to lead him astray here. There's just no chance. Going back to um, companies like Tesla, yeah, this is a swarm that is optimized to evolve, and this is a critical component of basically a healthy swarm. um, is that it's anti-fragile. It is designed to evolve and adapt. So Tesla has no qualms about. In fact, what makes Tesla so special as a company is its ability to take innovations and rapidly integrate them into their manufacturing stack. Um, and also like dramatically pivot their entire company. you know, Going from a sports car company to a mass EV company to an autonomous driving company to a humanoid robot company, right? Um, they have the most brilliant minds. They are the most capable of processing information about battery technology. And if it were possible to build this stuff and to scale it, and that it was cheaper to produce, faster to charge, um, and more energy dense, they would have done it. I don't say that about any company. I don't think, like companies like, obviously for years I was saying that automakers wouldn't be able to take innovations and outcompete an upstart like Tesla. Um, and I have no doubt that Donut Lab, either intentionally or unintentionally, is kind of trying to, uh, leverage kind of the past work that Tesla has done. Oh, Tesla did this. Tesla started up a car company, and was able to disrupt all these companies. Everybody does this. Every startup does this. Oh, that company did it, so we can do it. Yeah, I mean, Tesla almost died a number of times. Um, and even early on, when I was initially investing in Tesla, and nobody believed me when I said this. But I was telling people that one of the reasons why I was willing to invest in Tesla very early on was because I knew how much I knew that Elon Musk had $300 million from his PayPal sale. And I knew that he would put every dime of it into Tesla Motors if it needed to happen. So there was a huge backstop. There was a huge, like, backup plan kind of thing. Like, yeah, the odds were bankruptcy, but we would at least get a second chance as investors because I knew that he would back it up. That he would refund it. Now, I didn't know at the time that SpaceX would almost go bankrupt, and so he would only be able to put half of his money in. But right, so that was a scary time for sure because yeah, both almost went bankrupt. But lo and behold, the company almost went bankrupt. He put all of his money in. Um, and also, there was this incredibly strong founder with that deep well of experience actually building a company and having that experience building the software company. Um, I definitely did think that it gave him the right tool set to be able to build a new kind of hardware company based on software principles of like rapid iteration. But I still knew that the odds were long, right? So it's like I'm almost not even saying anything that different about Donut Lab than I was saying about Tesla at the time, which is that the odds of success were not high. I just thought that the odds of a high return were also high. Um, Now, if Donut Lab was to go public now, no, I wouldn't invest in a million years, because again, they don't they don't meet those criteria. These are people with exits. They don't have the kind of experience that I was looking for. I mean, yeah, some of them might have run companies, or whatever. We're not talking PayPal's. We're not talking that like level. No offense. Um, these are incredibly successful people. I would consider myself very lucky to be any one of them. Well, I'll say they're better than me. Okay, at whatever at their jobs. I don't care. You know. But if we're just talking about making the prediction, and what I think is going to happen, and the application of swarm theory, it says that this will not succeed. And the reason being, that this is simply not how innovation happens. Um, it takes a long time. There's constantly new technologies emerging. Um, it takes time for the knowledge, for the information to diffuse through the economy, for all the supply chain stuff to get there, um, and for everything to get built up, um, so that that innovation can filter through. And this is happening all the time. And really, an entrepreneur's job, um, is to spot the innovations that are emerging and basically market them. Okay. Um, and that is what Donut Lab is doing. I won't disagree with that. And like I said, they're not doing anything wrong. This is why I think that the dichotomy of trying to, so it's either a fraud or the future, is totally wrong. Obviously, um, it's they're they are doing their jobs, um, but I just don't see it happening, um, because everybody also has this information. There are now like lots of companies operating in this space. And again, you've just got this 900-pound gorilla, in the form of Tesla, led by, just like the most crazy um, person, um, who's just driving relentless innovation and exploration. And forget the person, forget that level of, you know him, right? Because that's the wrong way to evaluate, um, an organization. It's certainly not the swarm way, which is to say, you look at the outputs, right, and then you look at the swarm. um, and these are the levels that matter. um, and you look at how these are like feeding back into each other. And Donut Lab, just it hasn't been around long enough. It's just been a couple of years. um, and it does seem like they're moving fast. It looks great. And the prototypes look great. But I've been in the EV space now since before there was an EV space. I've seen these patterns over and 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 over again. And I'm sorry for people who like to get their hopes up. This is vapor. These are prototypes. That I will go out on a limb and say that this is really the prototype issue. And this is why Elon Musk says that prototypes are hard. Um, sorry, prototypes are easy. Manufacturing at scale is hard, or whatever he says. And it comes down to, and I haven't really seen anybody break down why exactly that is the case. But again, I think swarm theory can help us with this, because, um, a swarm that is capable of developing a prototype is a fundamentally different thing than a swarm that is capable of mass manufacturing a product. And and so what Donut Lab will have to do, and the reason why I don't think it will succeed, is because this is just such a very rare thing. The swarm has to be designed to evolve and to totally transform itself into new things. And this is when um, organizations face existential threats. The reason why Tesla almost went bankrupt a number of times is because you get these information processing nodes together. Those are the people. You get them together. You give them an abstract framework. This is our company. This is our mission. These are the departments. These are that. Right. And it's a small number of people. Um, and you give them this framework. You give them these incentives. They go out there, they consume information, they communicate information, they work together. Great. Everything's going great. They're amazing. They're the best. They're able to produce a prototype, something that's great at a certain scale. Oh, and this highlights what I think is an important point of swarm theory. The reason why we distinguish between a swarm and an information processing node is because once enough information processing nodes uh, network together, they become they're able to process both quantitatively and qualitatively more information, and so they become a different thing, and we call that thing a swarm. Now, swarms can are also right. So they're also information processing nodes because they're processing information, but now they're inaccessible. They're a fundamentally different thing than the nodes that are contained within it. It is the macro micro distinction. But now you've got this big thing, you've made this big thing, but you don't have direct access to it. It's a fundamentally different thing than the things that are making it up. Um, and so to go so you've created something that can process enough information to create a prototype. In order to mass produce that prototype, you now need to create another higher level thing that is capable of processing both quantitatively and qualitatively more information, because that's what's necessary to reach that new level of manufacturing a product at scale. And that is borderline impossible. Very few people can do it. That's why most companies fail. That's why most startups fail. That's why even those that do fail succeed cap out. And this is not a criticism of anyone. I have a startup that basically failed. Um, I have I'm a failed entrepreneur. These people are more successful than me. This is not a criticism of that. Like them, like I said, they're all doing. From what I can tell, they are all doing a great job. Swarm theory wouldn't provide much value if it didn't provide both counterintuitive predictions that will either be right or wrong. Um, but we'll see. But so the fact that this might be counterintuitive to a lot of people, to me, it's a good thing, and we'll see. We'll see. Like I said, I hope I'm wrong. But I think that that last point that I made is really the key thing to understand, which is it's that point that you know to to build to mass produce something in a way that is fundamentally different than the way everything else is made. I mean, in order to mass produce something that is made the same way as everything else, you still have to scale up your company. You still have to create this massive information processing node where with this highly nested structure where everyone is working together to produce, to produce value. And that value is compounding and aggregating and working at every level. And then products spit out of that thing. And that is just such an incredibly challenging thing that it becomes not even, um, it becomes an easy prediction. It becomes almost an unfair prediction to say that they're not going to succeed. It's almost just like saying, well, 99% of startups fail, or whatever the number is. Like, you know, but that's true. And it applies here. And yet you have a lot of people kind of, I think, falling for the marketing of this stuff. Um, so, yeah, I mean, that's what I think is going on.